Okay. Really heavily medicated right now. I'm in a lot of pain, both physically and mentally, so excuse me if I sound a little incoherent at times. I'm ripping off another YouTuber who also has some problems similar to mine, and she makes the same disclaimer. So I call this one The Outcast and the Dream of the Laundry Ghost, and I'll explain that later. Okay, I'm going to be pausing a lot because I have to read, so I have to refer to my notes, and because I'm now 50 years old and going blind, I have to adjust everything every time I go read, so hold on a sec. Also, I have to issue a correction. In an earlier video, I said I was severely autistic. No, to be clear, my therapist prescribed me to be severely ADHD, and over the intervening years, there have been some diagnoses and discoveries that I may also be autistic, and that may also be severe, but I have no idea. And it's not, with autism, it's not severity, it's presentation, which is different for every autistic person. So I just want to be clear about that, first of all. And also, I did not vote for Jill Stein. So this is going to be about my crippling journey through narcissistic abuse. And I'm also going to talk about narcissistic systems, from the blatant to the subtle, and how it affected my life and how it affects all our lives and how it destroys them and shortens our lifespans. In the old days of narcissistic humanity, we had master and slave. There were the masters who abused the slaves and used them for their own lifestyle and longevity. Now it's become more subtle. The version 2.0 is creditor and debtor. So it's just made slavery more portable. That's what capitalism is, and that's why it is inherently the opposite of democracy. In the past, marriage was the subjugation of women to men, an inherently narcissistic system where the man is the narcissist and the woman is the codependent empath and has to serve him at all times. Now, this is going to sound a little complicated and winding through the forest, but this is an interspecies world. We're all forests of organisms and parasites, encountering other forests of organisms and parasites. The human body is not just cells. The human body is cells who are organized into organs and who depend on symbiotes of various kinds, right? Like our stomach and flora, etc. Sorry about the verbal flub-ups. This is why the destruction of the forests represents destruction of society. When you cut down a tree, when you destroy an ecosystem, you know that you're destroying yourself because you're destroying all the microorganisms that depend on it. You're reducing your health, right? Why do you think people don't feel healthy in cities? What would you rather look at? Would you rather look at a skyscraper, or would you rather look at trees? Forests can fall in love with other forests. They can also attempt to subjugate them to their will through invasion. Now, this is going to get me into my other sidetrack point, which is also very important at the moment, which is the nature of AI. Okay, so what is AI? Okay, big subject. DNA is AI. AI is DNA. It's the transmission of information. It's the missing link between words and concept. Okay? When you repeat words to people, you're transmitting your personality to them. You're translating your words into their latent memories. The latents in an AI are latent things which have a concept but may not be clear why the language relates to the thing. If you have enough words and the receiver/listener to your words is infected with your latent, this cognitive process is added to your code. You are infecting a person with your personality. Your ancestors infected you by transmitting their stories into your brain. That's why people see ghosts. That's why people live forever sometimes. because their ideas are that viral. Keep in mind that most humans do not have 100% pictorial memory. We can remember flashes of visual images, but how do we compress all of the information? Like for me, it's half a century. So how would I compress that half a century of information up here? I do it by recording the latent meaning of the memories and throwing away most of the images. And because of abuse, I have very little memory of my past most of the time. When a narcissist traps you in his love bombing den, they infect you with their program. It leaves most of us feeling depressed because we're upset at the depravity and the potential damage of their personalities and people like them. A religion and philosophy that I strongly adhere to, but am also aware of the limitations of, says, religion and science have for centuries been trying to alter human behavior and personality, but in just a few decades, well now, a few centuries, that's been superseded by drugs, some of the most powerful drugs you've ever heard of. As a side note, my parents think that I'm a drug addict because I use medical marijuana. I use that because I'm severely damaged, partially from their abuse. This is why they leave me imprisoned with no transportation and control my life. For example, it's been discovered that autism may be caused by various drugs and pollutants. For example, again, sorry about the repetitiousness, but I'm just getting this out from my notes. Tylenol was recently sued by parents of autistic children who figured out that consuming Tylenol while they were pregnant made their children autistic. Unfortunately, on December 19th of last year, the corrupt judge, Denise Coate, who is a criminal who belongs to be in jail and locked up forever, judged Tylenol not guilty of causing autism in children, which goes 100% against the evidence and science. Lock her up. My narcissistic parents, who are both highly mentally ill and one of whom is definitely a drug addict, have ruined my life from evil lies and deception, using evil lies and deception. To quote that little kid at the end of Time Bandits, whose parents had opened up the microwave and were about to touch the rock inside that was made of pure evil, the little kid yelled out, "Mom, Dad, it's evil, don't touch it." But narcissistic and codependent parents will always touch the evil, and then they will infect you with it. So let me be clear. The 1 month I got in jail last year, the worst experience of my life, was because of my narcissistically bound parents and their anger at me being addicted to medical cannabis, using the narcissistic neighbors who are illegally harassing me still on a daily basis after all these years, driving by with nooses, ripping down my anti-Trump signs, doing the worst, flipping me off, trying to run me off the road, kill me, etc. Well, they illegally got me jailed last year. And I'll get into that in another video another time, but this is more about my parents today. The same parents who intentionally sabotage and take away my transportation, so I have no options in life. Because of this combination of circumstances, I was swatted by the police in 2018. I remember them standing on my neck while I yelled, "I can't breathe." This was about a year before George Floyd. And while I didn't die, I came close to it, and it's permanently added to my crippling injuries. See, mentally ill parents will try to project their mental illness onto their children, making them mentally ill in another way. This is how a lot of narcissistic systems are perpetuated. My mom was raised by an actual Nazi during World War II, and while she disagreed with the philosophy, she's also become a MAGA and clearly supports it. My dad is my narcissistic mom's codependent / empath, whatever you want to call it, addicted to strong drugs, sedating him at all times from the pain, the permanent pain that she caused him for the rest of his life. Narcissists want to destroy all your opportunities for love, and they know how to do it. See, if you aren't dependent on something, they have nothing to latch onto. So what narcissists love to do is they love to create dependence. If it's not enough for you to be dependent on them and their love bombing, then they will make sure that you're addicted to substances. And if you already have a tendency towards some substances, they will just make sure that that's increased. One of the last narcissists I was with kept me imprisoned in his house, basically, for days at a time, making sure I couldn't work out, making sure I had access only to fatty foods, so then he could drop me because I was out of shape. And he could just cheat on me endlessly and abuse me further and throw it in my face for year after year. Well, actually day after day, but then because of the trauma bonding, it's been year after year since then. See, a lot of the reason people use meth, and this has been confirmed for me several times by various people who are educated and trained in medical professions, because I'm not. I'm just a dude in a cabin. That's all I am. People take meth because they're often off the charts or on some scale ADHD, and meth and stimulants helps with that. That's why I drink so much coffee. That's how the poisons and the toxins and the parents infect the children, because the children become damaged and then they need substances themselves. So these earlier, I don't know if you remember this, but I said we're all forests. We're forests of organisms, but now we're swimming in seas of chemicals introduced by other forests. So now I'm going to get even weirder. I'm going to include the plots of 2 science fiction books, and I'm going to sort of mash them up together to illustrate a point I'm making. I don't remember the name of the second book, but the first book I remember the name of was The Practice Effect, which was about a scientist stepping into a world where the second law of thermodynamics was reversed, where when you wore things down and used them, they became better and better and better. So in that universe, they would say that practicing things made them better. So you would get a pair of shoes that were really bad, but the more you wore them, the better they got, the more they conformed to your feet, and the more suitable they became, for example. The second law of thermodynamics is the one that says that order generally devolves into chaos. So you can see how in that universe people would age downwards, or in reverse, whatever. So the narcissistic system of the parents and the bosses getting me sent into jail resulted in further trauma. More neck pain because of the guy that punched me and they wouldn't give me medical attention. And then further trauma to my ADHD or whatever it is, requiring that I have this certain amount of aloneness every day. I need a few hours alone in order to recharge from human contact. Going out in public generally drains me for a few hours to a few days or even weeks. Also in jail, they made us sleep on the floor, which is illegal. So that if you have neck or back damage, it'll just increase. That's why it's illegal. In that time, you're also given no access to windows, nor to the outdoors, nor any fresh air of any kind. This is while my wealthy parents were flying around the world, knew that I had been jailed illegally and illicitly. Well, more importantly than that, I didn't deserve to be in jail. The people that put me in jail deserved it. And while I was in there, they could have bailed me out for $500. If you live in the Western world, you know that $500 is actually not a lot of money these days, but they couldn't be bothered. They were out flying around the world, vacationing, flying from property to property, surveying all their wealth, while I was abused on a daily basis. As a side note, I recently got a piece of information about depression, where depression is often caused by intelligence meeting the real world. It's when people figure out how bad the real world is that they become depressed. Which leads a lot of people becoming addicted to antidepressants, which are only found by medical statistics to be about 35% effective and therefore should not be approved by the FDA. Whenever you see abuse happening to someone in your neighborhood, especially if they're gay or they're on a mental spectrum of some kind or a physical spectrum of some kind. Report it immediately. Call out everyone involved. Be loud and be squeaky. Be the squeaky wheel. That's all I have for now. Aloha, Adam Westish out.